Hey Sunspace Sun, I'm Daisy Victoria. Today we are going to make Anathema's very cool plaid wool coat from Good Omens Season 1. Anathema is a witch in the Good Omens series. She has many wonderful clothes, and I am quite taken with this coat. I decided to make this for DragonCon so that I could dress up in a Good Omens group with a couple of my friends. For the base of the coat, I'm starting with an old simplicity pattern that I had in my stash and making a few adjustments to this. While the fabric that was used in the film costuming is some kind of custom with a sort of brushed texture, this wool was pretty darn close. So this is from Pendleton. I got it one of the times that I was down in Portland. It's the right color scheme and the right size of print. And what I also love about this is it's 100% wool, so it's a little bit more breathable than if I went with a synthetic fabric. And also it's going to be really versatile, so it's something that I can wear at other times, not just with this cosplay. One of the things you can choose to set importance upon when working with something like a plaid or really any print is matching up the print or the plaid. So when I'm cutting out this coat, I'm really doing a good job of matching up the plaid to make sure that I have pattern matching throughout this garment. I chose not to line my coat, and that was very strategic because I know that Atlanta on Labor Day weekend is quite warm, and so I'm just trying to cut down a little bit on the layers. So I'm coming out of this with an unlined coat, which is going to be a little more versatile in terms of wearing it in different weather, which will be pretty useful at home as well. The exception to the no lining is that in the front there does need to be a facing of the same fabric that'll show on the lapel, and there's an inner facing to give that some structure, but the rest of the coat is unlined. One of the modifications I'm making to this pattern is I am extending the front piece, so where the lapel folds over in the pattern is not nearly as large as Anathema's coat in the show. Anathema has a very large lapel on her coat, so I need to extend that on the pattern to make it look approximately the same on my coat. And when I did this, I tried this on in the mirror and futzed with it a little bit, draped it to see where I thought was an appropriate amount. And then the collar also needs to be extended to match that as well. Here we are marking for welt pockets, which is probably nobody's favorite thing to sew. Actually, I don't sew a whole lot of welt pockets. I think it had been a while since I sewed my last welt pocket. Welt pockets have a number of steps. Typically you can follow the instructions in there. I don't think this is quite a tutorial on welt pockets, but I think you can also see at the same time I'm marking out where the pocket is going to go, and then I'm forming these strips, and those have to be sewn around where the pocket is going to go. So that's going to be sort of an edge around the pocket there. And those get sewn on before you cut open the pocket. You also have to sew the pocket itself, including the flap that's going to be visible from the outside of the garment. So you end up attaching the flap that goes on the outside of the pocket and also the pocket itself, and you turn those so that you create a nice finished edge on the pocket. And I know this isn't like a great step by step, here's how you sew a welt pocket. That wasn't really the goal of this video. However, that said, if you happen to be working on a welt pocket and this is exactly what you needed to see to make it make sense, then you're welcome. As you can see, working with all these weird pocket layers, these are all getting sewn on before we even cut the pocket open. So cutting that pocket slit is really a late step in this process, and you basically need to have everything kind of lined up where it needs to go so that when you do cut that pocket slit, you're ready to turn things to the side of the garment on which they belong, and it's going to look really nice and clean. And then just a little bit more sewing to get things secured into place, and we have a welt pocket. Now I will note that one of these steps is to attach that pocket, like the actual lining or pocket bag piece, to the top of the welt pocket too. So that way you don't just have a slit that goes straight through your garment, you want it to open into the pocket. A lot of this process is fairly basic construction of a garment. So I'm putting together the front to the side front, the back to the side back, and so on. Since it's pretty standard, straightforward, maybe not all that interesting. I don't know, you tell me. Maybe it's super interesting. Some highlight points are that I'm trying to make sure that my pattern matches up. Remember, I already cut it so that it matches up, and when I sew it, I'm just validating and verifying that it does in fact match up in reality. Another interesting part of construction is interfacing. So that collar needs to have some structure, and that is formed by using interfacing. That means that I have 2 layers for my collar of my plaid wool fabric, and also a layer of interfacing in between those layers. The sleeve cuffs, which is actually what I'm showing you right here, also have that same construction method where we have 2 layers of the fabric and a layer of interfacing that goes in between, and that interfacing gives them a lovely structure. The sleeves on this coat are gathered at the top. They're constructed as 2 pieces, and this is straight out of the pattern. It's the 2-piece sleeves where you have a piece on the top of the arm and a piece under the arm. So those are sewn together, and then there are gathering stitches run along the top part of the sleeve. So that provides a puffy sleeve that will attach into the arm side. These pieces are also included in the pattern itself. These are extra little poofy bits that add structure on the inside of the puffed sleeves at the shoulder. So I'm gathering these pieces and then I'm sewing them into the arm side sort of at the inside of the sleeve at the shoulder, so they're almost like a little shoulder pad, but instead of being on the shoulder, it's in the sleeve cap itself. And that just gives it a little extra body. This is the front of my coat, and I am here using interfacing for the entire front section of the coat. And that gives you a nice structure that you can see here played out in the collar and the lapel. Now, note that I made the collar too big at first. So I draped it on the mannequin and determined where I need to cut the collar down. So that meant ripping out the seam and undoing the collar. So that means I need to turn it back to inside out the way it was assembled and restitch it and cut off the excess and then put it back together. With the collar size adjusted, I'm much more pleased. I think this looks great and the way that I want it to look. Now I'm attaching buttons to the front of my coat, and of course that means also button holes to the other side so that I can button them. There are also a couple more buttons that will go on this coat on the pockets. So remember those welt pockets. We are going to put buttons on those pockets so that I can fully close them securely. And those buttons don't have to be decorative because they're not going to be visible. Furthermore, there are 2 buttons on a little tab that goes on the back of the coat. Now to style Anathema, I'm using a minty green colored ribbon to tie around the waist to give the effect of what she's wearing around her waist on the show. And then under the coat, I'm wearing an outfit that is very much like what Anathema wears on the show. So you can't really see it, but I have on a black skirt underneath. And then I'm wearing a blue lacy top. I did find the one that they used in the show, but it was a little out of my price range. So I think this one will do. It looks close enough to me. And I think she actually wears a couple of different things under this coat in different episodes of the show. So we are just going for one outfit. And here we are at the convention. Thanks so much to my friends, Estelle and Laura, who are Crowley and Azirophale, for helping me to get a few shots of the reveal of my outfit. And I just now noticed that one of my lapels is kind of folded over, but that's okay. I think you still get the idea of what this looked like, and you will see in some of the coming shots and photos what it looks like when it's laid flat. I think my hair actually covers it most of the time. I didn't get tons of pictures and footage at Dragon Con. It was understandably a little bit warm, and I actually wore the outfit underneath for part of the time and only put the coat on at select timings. But I'm thinking about bringing it again this year, so maybe I can get some more photos then. We will see. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Find me on all the social medias as Daisy Viktoria. My website is daisyviktoria.com. And thank you so much to my patrons over on Patreon. I hope you have a wonderful, magical day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.